The April 8th ceasefire was supposed to hold. 2 months earlier, a joint American and Israeli air campaign had struck Iran harder than at any point in modern history nuclear infrastructure. Missile production sites, command posts, and air defense networks reduced over 100 days of sustained strikes. Iran's supreme leader was gone. Its regional network had been systematically The ceasefire, brokered under American pressure, was the fragile line between regional war and something wider. Both sides signed it. It lasted 61 days. On the morning of June 8, 2026, the 100th day of a war that began on February 28, Iran fired 11 ballistic missiles at Israel. Not warning shots, not misfires. Targeted ballistic missiles directed at Ramat David Air Base near Nazareth, at central Israel, near Dimona and Arad. By 6 a.m. Jerusalem time, missile alert sirens were sounding across the country. The strategic context that made this moment possible requires understanding what the previous 100 days actually destroyed. When the U.S.-Israeli campaign began on February 28, 2026, its stated objectives were precise. Iran's nuclear program, its ballistic missile infrastructure, and its air defense network, the three pillars that made Iran a regional military power. Over the following weeks, strikes designated Operation Roaring Lion systematically worked through each of these pillars. ISW assessments throughout March and April documented the progressive degradation of Iranian radar coverage, the destruction of surface-to-air missile batteries, and the elimination of the command infrastructure that linked them together. The arithmetic of air defense is unforgiving. A radar network is not just sensors, it is a layered system of detection, tracking, fire control, and communication nodes. Remove enough nodes, and the entire system loses coherence. By the time the April 8 ceasefire was declared, Iran's air defense architecture had not just been damaged, it had been structurally collapsed. This created an immediate problem Iran could not afford to leave unsolved. Without functioning air defense, Iranian airspace is open. Every critical site energy infrastructure, military installations, government facilities sits exposed. The 2 months following the ceasefire were not a pause in the conflict. They were a race. Iran moved quickly to deploy rebuilt detection systems and air defense batteries to locations across the country. The Jerusalem Post confirmed that Iranian defense systems had been deployed in numerous areas as part of Tehran's effort to restore its detection and defense capabilities. That effort cost significant resources and time. And on the morning of June 8, Iran gave Israel both the justification and the targeting data to erase it. If a country rebuilds its air defense network in secret and an adversary is watching every radar signal is a position report, that is the open question this analysis will answer. Subscribe to Universal Manufacturing and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. The trigger was a sequence that began not in Iran, but in Lebanon. Israel struck Beirut following documented Hezbollah ceasefire violations. Iran, whose regional deterrence had long run through Lebanese Hezbollah as a forward layer, faced a choice: absorb the strike and signal weakness, or respond and risk breaking the ceasefire entirely. Tehran chose response. Before sunrise on June 8, Iran launched 11 ballistic missiles toward Israeli territory. The Revolutionary Guards confirmed targeting of Ramat David Air Base near Nazareth. 2 waves of launches followed. Missile alerts activated across central and southern Israel. Near Jericho, fragments of intercepted missiles came down in the West Bank. Near Dimona and Arad in the south, second wave launches prompted fresh alerts. From the Israeli air defense operators running the intercept sequence, this was a manageable technical problem. Arrow systems, David Sling, and Iron Dome activated in their documented operational sequence. From the perspective of Israeli strike planning, the aerial picture running in parallel, the same 11 launches were something entirely different. They were coordinates. Every missile that left Iranian territory that morning transmitted one piece of information Israel did not previously have confirmed: location. The launch sites Iran had quietly rebuilt during the ceasefire period had just announced themselves. The Israeli Air Force activated within the same operational window. Dozens of fighter jets launched in what the IDF later confirmed was a large-scale operation against Iranian military targets. The strikes hit 3 categories in sequence. First, the radar sites, at least 3 confirmed destroyed by Iran's own Revolutionary Guard Corps. Second, the missile launch infrastructure, storage and launch facilities whose positions the morning's barrage had just confirmed. Third, the Mahshahr petrochemical complex in Khuzestan Province, southwestern Iran the first Israeli strike on an Iranian energy site since the April 8 ceasefire. Iranian state media confirmed explosions in Tehran. Reports of detonations reached Isfahan and Tabriz. Iran's airports were shut down. Workers at the Mahshahr complex were evacuated. 5 production lines at the facility had been struck across the course of the war, with fresh damage confirmed on June 8. The IDF's own statement on the radar strike stated it precisely. The latest attacks had further reduced these newly restored air defenses to enable the Air Force to attack more freely within Iran should the current round of fighting continue. The system Iran spent 61 days rebuilding had been partially erased in a single morning. That is not coincidence. That is the documented consequence of a decision Iran made when it chose to launch. The jamming was designed to blind the adversary. The missile launches designed to impose cost. But in firing, Iran marked the positions it needed to protect. The investment in post-ceasefire reconstruction had inadvertently guided the strike package that erased it. The Rand Corporation and Rusi have both examined the structural dilemma facing any military that must simultaneously signal resolve and conceal capability. The two objectives pull in opposite directions. A missile that fires signals intent. It also signals origin. When the defender's intercept system is functioning as Israel's was on June 8, the offensive launch accomplishes only one of those two objectives cleanly. This is the doctrine Iran's planners understood. It is also the doctrine their decision violated. Deterrence theory holds that a credible threat prevents an attack, but deterrence requires the threat to be visible without making the launcher visible in return. Ballistic missiles, by their nature, cannot satisfy both conditions simultaneously. Israel's response doctrine, what the IDF calls maintaining freedom of action in Iranian airspace, is the counter principle. Every time Iran's air defense network approaches restored capability, that freedom of action narrows. The June 8 strikes did not just respond to the morning's missile barrage. They reset the condition Operation Roaring Lion had established. Iranian radar degraded. Israeli strike options open. The confirmed figures tell the operational story directly. 11 Iranian ballistic missiles launched. At least 3 Iranian radar sites destroyed. Iran's Revolutionary Guard confirmed this figure. 5 production lines at Mahshahr hit since February 28. Brent crude futures moved above $97 per barrel, following the strikes, a nearly 5% increase in a single session, confirmed by Reuters. One petrochemical complex in Khuzestan and the global energy market registers a 5% move. That is the documented arithmetic of infrastructure vulnerability in an active conflict zone. 2 waves of Iranian launches triggered 2 separate Israeli intercept activations. The Houthis in Yemen fired simultaneously, forcing Israeli air defense to operate on 2 geographic axes at the same time. The operational load was real. Both sides are adapting in real time, and each adaptation creates a new problem. Iran's Revolutionary Guard blamed the United States directly for the exchange and warned that further strikes on energy and non-military targets would carry global economic consequences. The Houthis pledged to disrupt Israeli maritime navigation. Tehran announced the end of military operations, but simultaneously warned of a more crushing response if strikes on Lebanon or Iranian territory resumed. For Israel, the June 8 operation achieved something beyond the immediate targets. The IDF's language was doctrinal, not tactical. The strikes were designed to maintain degraded Iranian air defense as a sustained condition, not a one-time response. A recurring reset. The complication is in Washington. Trump's public demand that both sides immediately stop shooting, combined with his reported statement that Netanyahu doesn't call the shots, represents a documented fracture in the U.S.-Israeli operational alignment that made the February 28 campaign possible. If that fracture holds, Iran's next air defense rebuild occurs behind a diplomatic shield it did not have in February. The April 8 ceasefire held for 61 days. The June 8 exchange ended with Iran announcing the conclusion of military operations paired with a warning that conditions for renewed escalation remain in place. Neither side has withdrawn from the position that made the exchange possible. Iran retains ballistic missile capability. Israel retains air superiority over Iranian territory. The rebuilt air defense network is partially erased again. What has changed is the cost calculus. Both sides now have updated data on how the other responds, how fast and how precisely. The open question, the one the documented record cannot yet answer, is whether the U.S.-Israeli fracture visible on June 8 gives Iran the strategic space to complete a third air defense rebuild without triggering a third Israeli strike campaign, or whether the pattern holds. Iran rebuilds, Iran fires, Israel erases. Can Iran break that cycle? Or does Israel keep turning Iranian missile launches into targeting data? Share your assessment in the comments. If this analysis helped you understand what actually happened on June 8, beyond the headline, like, share, and subscribe to Universal Manufacturing for more analysis on the weapons, operations, and decisions shaping today's conflicts. This content is created to help viewers understand how modern warfare is changing, not to glorify conflict. The goal is clarity, not celebration.